welcome to Solosaurus, a podcast about one-player board and card games. My name is Brandon Waite.
And my name is Carter Mackey.
And this is episode 42, where we are not reviewing a game like we normally do, but instead we are covering our top 10 solo games, 2019 edition. So this whole episode is going to be a little bit different. We don't have a news section or anything like that. This is just our opportunity to share with you once a year a snapshot of what our top 10 solo games are. And for a lot of people, this will probably be your first jumping in point on the podcast. It was last year. And so if you aren't familiar with Solosaurus and what we do, we are just two guys who are reviewing solo games regularly, and I play them all the time, and I love to play them and would choose to do this like over playing video games or watching television, and not quite as much for you.
Not. It's just not that same way for me. I like board games a lot, but I like video games and things like that. And the only time I'm probably really ever going to play a solo game is just out of sheer desire to play a board game and not being able to do it with other people. Sometimes it gets harder and harder to do the older you get, I feel.
Yeah. In fact, that's how we both came to solo gaming, both as a hobby and as an idea for a podcast anyway. The whole idea of this show was, when your opportunities to play games with other people are all but extinct, you turn to solo games. A lot of people do. That's how they get into it. For a lot of us, we end up coming to a place where we actually really enjoy playing solo games. And, that's what we would choose to do with our time. But for other people, it's just like what you said. I want to play a game, and that's not there anymore.
Just a begrudging concession.
Yeah, a begrudging concession is a good way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that'll just give you an idea of where we're coming from when we create this list. I've been playing solo games for a while, and so I actually did the 2018 top 10 solo list, but you weren't even in a place yet where you could have made a top 10 last year.
It basically would have been like all the solo games I'd ever played.
Yeah. So Carter wasn't part of it last year. This year is his first time making this list. So how did you go about making this list and putting it together?
Well, I guess I just thought, I went through all the games I had played solo, and I was just trying to balance between games that I really, really loved and thought was great, and then also just convenience of play. Like how likely would I be to get this out? Because some games are just, if it's easy to get out, that puts it a little bit higher. I'll go ahead and give a little bit of a spoiler. Still, some of the heavier games are at the top, but that was definitely a part of it. With some of them was ease of getting them out and getting into them.
Yeah, that's definitely what shaped my list too. So I used PubMeeple's ranking engine, which if you've never heard of before is this great system where you can put in a list of games that you want to rank or import a list from Board Game Geek, and then this engine will show you two at a time. You pick which game you like more, and then you move on to the next pairing, and at the end of all these matchups, you have a ranked list. So that's what I did for mine, just because I didn't want to go through the trouble of trying to force myself to rank them by some other means. I just decided to use this system, and it works super well. So if you've never used it and you're interested in ranking your collection or your taste or whatever, just go and check that out. I will say there's a reason that we don't call this our top 10 of all time, right? Because if you're going to put out a yearly list, it's not your top 10 of all time. My tastes shift, and my ability to play games shift, and my brain space for being able to play a heavy game versus playing a light game, all of that stuff shifts, and that plus the fact that we're reviewing games and being exposed to new games all the time, for me, just makes this list. This is a snapshot of where I am right now. As a person who doesn't have that much time to play solo games, who has a pretty demanding job and comes home at the end of the day and doesn't usually have brain space left after toddlers take, what's left in there from me. This is what I'm playing most right now, or wish I could play more. I guess it's a mix of all those things. So that gives you an idea of how we put these together, just in case any of you are interested in that. So without further ado, I say we just go ahead and start the list.
All right. I put Root at number 10 for me.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you really enjoyed playing the solo mode. I'm assuming the Better Bot project. So
yeah, right. So, this is only specifically with the Better Bot project. I just love Root so much. And it's one of those things that, on a just multiplayer game list, Root would be much, much higher. But this gives me enough of that I would want to play Root with that project, because I don't know. I just love Root so much. It's an enjoyable game to look at. It's so pretty. It's such a cool and interesting thing. I just think a lot about all the things I can do. It's just very invigorating to try the different factions to play with. Yeah.
And all the factions play so radically differently.
I know, it's like a bunch of different little bitty games inside of the one game.
Yeah, it really is. It plays like an anthology almost. And what I really like about that is that when you do the Better Bot Project, the quirks and curiosities of each of those factions is preserved in the solo mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great choice. Mm-hmm. So, number 10 for you?
Root.
My number 10 is Black Sonata from Side Room Games. We did a review of this a while back, and I have always wanted to have some kind of short playtime deduction game. When I saw this advertised, this game about trying to track down Shakespeare's Dark Lady in London, that theme stuck out to me. The idea of a solo deduction game stuck out to me, and I hoped that it would be good and assumed that it wouldn't, just because I'm so often let down by the premise of games when I actually play them. It totally lived up to what I wanted it to be. It plays quickly. I have played it so many times just because I can get it out, have a really meaty, crunchy experience, but that isn't rules heavy in about a half hour.
Yes.
It's a lovely game.
There's so much in it for the time that it takes to get out, set up, just get into it. I don't know.
Yeah, and the replayability is just through the roof. So if you want to hear more about this title, you can check out our review. But my number 10 is Black Sonata.
At number 9 for me is Renegades.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good choice. We just reviewed this one.
Right, that was our last review, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty meaty game. You're definitely going to have to think to get into it. But man, it's just, the more I think about it, the more I like and respect it, and just what it is and how much it really packages in there. Just a ton of replayability. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good game and pretty easy setup time and everything.
Yeah, it really feels more and more to me like if somebody decided to make Mage Knight light, use cards to move around a map and accomplish objectives, feels sandboxy and not obviously as sandboxy as Mage Knight, but has some of those elements, but yet the mechanics are tight, is a great pick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the price point is just right on target, too.
Yeah, it's hard to beat.
Yeah. Good. So your number 9 is Renegade. My number 9 is Star Realms Frontiers. So another small box game for me. You haven't played this one yet, have you?
This is a game I would imagine would be on my top 10 if I had actually played this. Because I love Star Realms. I have just the regular set with a couple of the expansions, but I don't have the solo expansion that comes with this.
Yeah, Star Realms is such an interesting little system because it's a deck builder that has, 4 main factions in it. And, your deck that you're building, it benefits from having a lot of cards of the same faction in it. But I end up focusing on 2, usually.
Right.
So you can get some of those nice chain combos in your deck that you're looking for. It's really satisfying deck building. Really interesting card powers. And for the Star Realms Frontiers, there are solo rules baked into the core rulebook. This is a standalone set that you can use as an expansion if you want to, and expand very easily by buying the other Star Realms sets. But it comes with 10 scenarios that feel radically different from one another for solo players. It's so good. I am convinced that this and Black Sonata are some of the best bang for buck games that you can purchase. I mean, Black Sonata has so many different ways that, the Dark Lady can move around London, and that feels very different from game to game. This feels just like 10 different games in a box for $30 or less. It's really amazing to me that you can get this game and get so many plays out of it without needing to buy any expansions. I don't have any expansions for this. I'm just totally satisfied with it. So Star Realms Frontiers is number 9 on my list.
So number 8 for me is Black Sonata.
Nice choice.
Yeah. Once again, I mean, all the things that you've said, it's just quick, easy, great price point. Just so much to do. I don't know. It's just really, it's a tight package, and in the setup, pace of the game, when it's over everything, it just feels very satisfying and isn't hard to get into. I mean, I would say that's part of what puts it as this high on the list for me, or probably makes it to the list, is just that it's easy to get out, to have something that's not going to annihilate my mind, but will still be very satisfying.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's an excellent choice. My number 8 is also one of yours. I picked Root for my number 8.
Okay.
I know a lot of people disagree with our review for the solo play of this. A lot of people do agree with it as well, but this is one of our more divisive for sure. I think that the Better Bot Project is fantastic. Like you, Root would be near the top of my list if I was making a multiplayer list. But the solo play is excellent as well. Games go quick. like an hour or less. I really like that. I like that the system is modular enough that you could choose to play with, 3 other factions if you wanted to, and it's not that much work to manage them. I'm not playing it as much solo right now just because I'm waiting on the new expansion to come out that gives you the official solo boards. There's something about playing on printed out paper boards that I just don't really like.
Yeah, it's not as satisfying.
No, especially given that all the other components in the game are so nice.
Yes, they are.
Man, once the official boards come out, I imagine this will be hitting my table just like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Root is my number 8.
All right, number 7 for me is Viticulture.
Yeah, that's an excellent one. That one did not make my list, but it is an excellent choice.
It was one of those things that I'm kind of surprised I made it this far up, but the more I thought about it, it's so enjoyable. I just have such a good time playing it. And it's just so, I don't know, like you think a lot and it's like you have to make hard choices, but it's just kind of, it's just a really nice, pleasant experience. I don't know what else to say. Maybe it's just the romance of winemaking.
Right. You do love winemaking and drinking and all of that.
Sure.
Right? So
yeah.
I'm sure that plays into it. I think the Grande worker mechanic alone is one of the most impressive and simple worker placement mechanics there is. When to use that and when to save it is just agonizing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, excellent choice. I have played this game so many times solo, and you can get a lot of mileage out of it, even without buying the Tuscany expansions. But once you do add those, yeah. So number 7 for you is Viticulture. Number 7 for me is Terraforming Mars. I love me some Terraforming Mars. It is ugly as sin.
So ugly.
But it's so good, and it's hard. It's a very difficult game to beat, but feels satisfying, feels very similar to the multiplayer game in a lot of ways, but without having to worry about player conflict, which is one of those things I hate take that mechanics in games. This one has one of the worst, and in one of the worst genres to have it.
Yeah, engine building is not where that belongs.
No, it's definitely not, but you don't have to worry about it in a solo game.
Nope.
And now that I have the Prelude expansion for this, it's even better because it just makes the game feel like you're skipping that whole first 3 turns, basically, of playing the game without it.
Mm-hmm.
You start with a nice bump that differentiates you even more than having the corporations. It's so good. If you have not yet tried Terraforming Mars or listened to our review for it, you should, because this is a game that deserves all the hype that it gets. And I'm pretty sure that it just jumped up to number 3 on the Board Game Geek list overall. Yeah, which is deserved.
Yes.
A lot of people thought it was a flash in the pan, but I think it's here to stay. So that is my number 7, Terraforming Mars.
All right. Number 6 for me is City of Kings.
Yeah, that's such a good one. This just fell off my list.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just barely.
Man, yeah, it is a real thinky hard game. There's a lot to set up. There's so many fiddly bits. There's a lot of rough edges on this game in my mind, but it's still just so fun. And I love the hard choices to make, the how to like work your character out as far as level them up, kind of give them their abilities and powers, the right amount of staticness with the right amount of randomization. Yeah, I don't know. I really, really like this game a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. The only reason it didn't make my list is just because we had a multiplayer game of this not too long ago where we decided to play one of the like one-off kind of challenges instead of playing through one of the proper scenarios.
Yeah.
And it was awful.
I'm just pretending like that was a different game.
Yeah, it's made me lose my taste for it a little bit, which is crazy because I know that it's such a good game. And as soon as I get it out and play it solo again, I'll love it.
Because you won't play one of those scenarios or challenges. What are they called again?
I don't remember what they're called, but I thought it would be fun because we were looking for a shorter play experience. And it ended up dragging out because none of us were able to level up the way we wanted to. But the reason it stands out, though, is because that's not how it plays out normally.
Right.
Normally, you have the satisfaction of leveling up and feeling like you're more and more powerful. And yeah, such a good game. And one that you could get so much mileage out of with just the base game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you add the expansions, it's insane. So,
yeah.
My number 6 is Hoplomachus Origins. There is something about this game that is mesmerizing to me.
Yeah, I know you love this game so much.
I do. It's just the fact that I can play a game that's as meaty and tense as this in like 15, 20 minutes is crazy.
Yes.
It has very small footprint on the table. It's easy to set up, but has so many interesting choices. Simple AI system. I kept hearing about this off and on for a long time from people who are just diehard chip theory games people. You know, people who love too many bones and every variant of Hoplomachus.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just decided to take the plunge, and this was the cheaper one and the smaller kind of intro version. I might move beyond it one day, but for now, it just works for me perfectly. We've done a review of this, and that's true for most of the games on this list. You can hear a little bit more about why I love it so much, but the trials system that's in here, where you sort of work your way up a ladder of increasingly difficult trials, man, it just hits the sweet spot for me, and it makes me love this game so, so much. So that is my number 6, Hoplomachus Origins.
So number 5 for me is Mansions of Madness.
Ooh, this game is so good.
I love the Cthulhu mythos, being able to game that's, I mean, it's not like a fast setup time, but just, you know, I'm not huge into app automation and all that stuff as much as you are, but it's still just, it helps, takes the edge off, doing the setup and everything, the slowly exploring through the space for whatever scenario you choose, and just, you know, losing your mind or being consumed by unspeakable horrors. These are things I love.
Me too. There's a lot of randomness in this, but it just creates some of the most memorable times I've ever had in a game. That's an excellent choice. And one that will perhaps appear a little later on my list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My number 5 is Snowdonia. This is a new entry for me. Snowdonia has been around since 2012, but I had never played it. I just recently backed the Snowdonia Deluxe Master Set that was on Kickstarter last year. It delivered a month ago, maybe. And in that time, I've played it 6 times.
And how long do these games last, typically?
It's not that long. It's like maybe an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty... It's definitely like a solidly medium weight worker placement game. And for a lot of people, it could be an intro worker placement game, I think. It is so good. It is just a very simple game about building a train track up a mountain, at least in the base scenario. You're building it up Mount Snowdon, and you're removing rubble to build the tracks and getting point for laying tracks. And I don't care about trains as a theme. I never have. I've never found train games interesting at all. But what makes this game compelling, 2 things really. One is the solo mode done by David Turchi, the redesigned solo mode, is so good. It's very simple and elegant, and yet you have an idea of what the AI might do on its turn, but there's still the randomness of rolling a die to determine what it actually does, which is his thing. You know, that's his go-to move. It works for me. It's a beautiful AI system, but what really sells it is the number of scenarios in this game is crazy. There are something like 18 different scenarios in the box, 7 of which I think can be played with the solo mode, and they feel wildly different from one another.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I have not played this game yet, but you have showed me the contents of this box, and there is a lot of stuff in there.
So many cards. I think there's something like 800 cards in this game. I mean, even the stack of just trains that you use. In a solo game, you'll play with 3 trains at a time. There must be 300 trains in here. The variability is mind-blowing. I love it. It's very fun. We'll definitely do a review of this for people who are interested. I know that this is going to have limited retail availability, but it'll almost certainly be back on Kickstarter at some point. So if you're interested in Snowdonia, hang around for the review. We'll definitely cover that. But for me, it is really hitting the sweet spot for me worker placement wise. And that is Snowdonia from NSKN Games.
Okay, number 4 for me is Anachrony.
Yeah, I knew this would appear somewhere on here.
Yeah, it's a game I haven't gotten to play it in a while, multiplayer or solo, but it's just so good. It's just, I love the way it handles the worker placement and the time and jumping back and just the kind of resource management you have. The difference between the factions isn't like earth-shattering, but it's just good and like is good enough to make each faction really satisfying to play and try to get through the thing. I don't know. I really like this game. It's just a good, I guess, medium to heavy-ish. I don't know. What would you say this weight is?
I consider this a heavy worker placement game.
Yeah, I guess. It's easy to downplay the heaviness of worker placement games.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, there are heavier games out there, but to me, it belongs solidly in that category.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, I really like this game. Even the simple things of putting your little workers in their mechs as they go around through the wasteland or whatever is a great game. Yeah, solidly in slot number 4 for me.
Yeah, definitely. When we get to slot number 4 is where things got very difficult for me in terms of ranking, because my number 4 is Spirit Island. And I thought this would be slightly higher on my list because I cannot overstate my love for this game. I love the theme of pushing colonists off your island. I love playing these deities who are just trying to terrify them or kill them until they leave. I love how crazy different each spirit feels. And there's just something about the number of rules that are in this game. It just doesn't feel overwhelming to me. And yet there's so much space for you to play and for them to play as designers. I love it. Adding in the expansion for this, which I received for Christmas this year, it adds so little in terms of rules overhead, but so much more depth. I love it. The only reason this is not higher on my list is because this is one of those games that I do actually enjoy playing more multiplayer than solo. And a lot of the games on this list are like equally yoked for me, or else I enjoy playing it more solo than multiplayer. It surprised me how much I enjoy playing this with other people, just because this one has really caught on among our friend group in a way that a lot of the games that I like don't always. Other people like them, but they don't love them. Everybody seems to love this game.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have somebody else to share the mental load with you.
Yeah, it really does help.
That's the only thing that knocks it down for me, is you really need to play with two spirits, in my opinion. And managing two spirits is a lot to deal with. But there's nothing else out there like it. That's Spirit Island, number 4.
All right, number 3 for me is Lisboa.
Wow, it jumped up that high for you.
Yeah, I really like this game. And it's one of those things I feel like a little strange putting it this high up, because I know it's a game that I would not play a lot solo, because it is such an involved, heavy game, so much to think through, but I really love it. It's so much fun. It keeps a heavy mental load, but I never feel exhausted by it, but it's just like I'm constantly engaged. And it's almost, I feel like for me, it's almost like just a one more turn thing to kind of, reference something like Civilization, the video game. It's just, I'm just constantly engaged and just want to keep going. And it's like, I need to stop because I have other things to do and I can't spend 4 hours right now doing this. But yeah, I really, really like this game. I mean, and it's hard to explain the other things about it in this moment because it's such a weird, interconnected, complex game. But man, yeah, I liked freeing the city of Lisboa from this natural catastrophes.
Yeah, it's a testament to how hard it was for me to put this list together that this is number 11. Ooh, I love Lisboa. This is an excellent choice. And it's one that I feel like I just want to play this game all the time. It's a lot to get out on the table and to set up and to play, but there's so much about it that's compelling. If you want to hear us gush about it more, check out our review. But yeah, excellent choice for number 3.
So yeah, what is your number 3 going to be?
My number 3 is Anachrony.
Okay.
Yeah, I love this game to pieces. For all the reasons that you said, the theme gets me. The worker placement is simple but really challenging. I love the process of building out the little buildings in your different civilization that give you your special actions, that give you your own sort of setup and economy, and using that in combination with the powers. And I love those mechs, man.
Yeah.
This is the first game that I've painted completely.
You're finished painting all of them?
I'm finished painting all of them. And they look amazing. And the solo mode for this by David Turczi is just, it's so good. It is so, so good. And I love it.
Yeah, how did I not mention that aspect of the solo mode? I mean, that's part of what makes it so good. Because obviously multiplayer on this game is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But just how well that the solo mode works in this game is just fantastic.
It really is. It's a brilliant design. If you have not checked out Anachrony, or if it just is imposing and scary to you, I will say one thing I love about this also is just that the theme comes through so strongly that I think that even if heavy Euros aren't normally your thing, you might like this one. So that is number 3 for me, Anachrony.
So do you have any guesses on what my number 2 is? I mean, because there's only 2 left.
I'm going to say it's Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
I know, as much as I like this game, I know you like it possibly even more than me. So
yeah, I don't know. I just there's something about, I mean, I like engine building in general, but man, it just feels so good in this game. I love playing this game multiplayer. I love playing it solo. It's so much fun. Like you said, the new, is it corporate expansion? I forget what it is.
Prelude expansion.
Yeah, the Prelude expansion with, it just makes me love this game even more.
Yeah.
This game probably would have been at this spot without that, but that just kind of secures it there in that place for me.
And the fact, too, that Prelude is exactly the kind of expansion I want. It's cheap. It's like $10. It just adds a few cards, but what that does for the game is it just sets it free. In my mind, it's what it should have been.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, great choice for number 2. You got any guesses on my number 2?
Is it Mansions?
Yeah, it's I'm kind of cheating here. I'm putting Mansions of Madness and Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth in the same spot.
See, okay, I figured it was one of those two.
Yeah.
And I knew they both weren't in your number 1 and number 2 spots.
No, I'm not going to do that. To me, I love these games.
Mm-hmm.
I love the app integration. I love the different systems that they use that are different, but both very compelling for me. It just depends on my mood which one I'll pick. But I love what apps do for dungeon crawling. I love dungeon crawl games, but they're so clunky to play often solo. I don't want to, manage 2 characters with a ton of equipment and different stats. Managing 2 characters in this game is very easy to keep track of everything. Managing how enemies come out in dungeon crawlers playing solo does not often work for me.
Mm-hmm.
The way the app handles that and combat and thematic flair is just so good. I love everything about both of these games, especially if I had to pick one over the other. I probably will play Mansions more just because the Cthulhu theme comes through a little bit stronger to me. But I don't think you can go wrong with either one. Absolutely love both of these games. That's Mansions of Madness and Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. So now it's number 1 time.
Right. And I think it's probably, at least to you, very obvious what my number 1's going to be.
It's definitely going to be Spirit Island.
Yeah, man, I love this game. I love it multiplayer, solo, it doesn't matter. Like you said, in our own friend group, a lot of our friends that we play games with love this game too. It's just, I feel like it's easy to get into. The depth that is there to ramp up the difficulty. It has a pretty nice, even curve on adding the difficulty, and that you can just keep coming back, making it a little bit harder. And it's harder in interesting ways than just kind of mean hardness. I don't know how else to describe that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And yeah, like you were kind of saying about the names of the spirits, how much they vary, how easy it is for the designers to iterate on this and keep coming out with new things. It's just such a solid core system with tons of replayability in it. And then the expansions just send that through the roof to me.
Yeah, this is one of those rare games that does not suffer from bloat from its expansions. I mean, it only has 1 right now plus extra spirits.
Mm-hmm.
But often what happens in games like this is you will get 1 or 2 new mechanics associated with each new character or whatever. And then you have to add on rule books and more rules. And before you know it, it feels like, okay, well, this keyword that you added here, Legendary Marvel, for instance, does this all the time. It's only going to be used in this 1 expansion, right? I'm not going to see it again. And yet there's a whole rule set for it. This game just takes what's already there and just finds so many new ways to manipulate it that are compelling and interesting. And yeah, I love this game.
Yeah. And I mean, to go back to what you said previously on your list, the managing the 2 spirits is more of a load, definitely, but I don't know. I still just it's like a different kind of challenge. Like what combination of 2 spirits am I going to try to use in unison? It just, to me, it's more difficult, but is an interesting challenge to add for me personally.
Yeah, I could totally see that. My number 1 is a bit of a surprise to probably most people. Do you have a guess what this might be?
Yeah, I mean, I know what it is.
My number 1 is Marvel Champions, which I'm going to get guff for from a lot of people because this game isn't out yet at the time of this recording because we got a review copy of it. And just in case anybody's wondering, I see a lot of chatter online recently about how review copies affect reviewers' opinions. I think the only people who think that reviewers are swayed by review copies are people who don't do the work of reviewing games and then editing the content that they produce about them, because it's not worth it.
No.
Right? If that's why you're doing it, is to get more review games, it's 100% not worth it. I expected to think this game was okay. I've been interested in playing one of these Fantasy Flight games, LCGs, for a while, but there was always something about them that was just a little bit off to me. I don't want to do a bunch of deck building before I play a game. I don't want to play 2 characters and manage their decks like you have to do for the Arkham Horror card game or the Lord of the Rings card game. When they announced Marvel Champions, I love the Marvel IP.
Yes.
Very, very much.
Yes, you love Marvel a lot.
I love it a lot, but that would not have carried it. I'm so often disappointed by IP games. What makes this game interesting for me is that every hero in the box plays very differently. You don't have to do any deck building because they call them starter decks in the rulebook, but just in my opinion, I don't think I will ever need to build a custom deck for one of these because the starter decks work very well and they feel like they have a lot of variety from game to game. What makes this extra interesting is that the hero that you play as has two sides to their card, their hero side and their alter ego side. And often it's beneficial for you to be in one side or the other, depending on whatever the current state of play is. You don't want to stay in either one for too long because it affects how the villain is going to play against you. We've not reviewed this yet. This will be our next review. I have played this game 20 times.
Wow.
And I want to continue playing it. That never happens. I don't think I can look at any game in my collection right now and say that I've played it 20 times, except for the ones that I've had for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
This is the perfect mixture for me right now of very little setup, short playtime. Games can be anywhere from like 20 to 40 minutes. Really interesting choices and gameplay and a theme that I love. So I know that people will say this is the definition of Cult of the New. I would say to that, look at the rest of the list. There's a lot of variety here. And it could be that next year, like, this isn't on here. But if we're making this a snapshot of where I am right now, I just want to play this game every minute of the day. That's where I'm at. I love Marvel Champions, so that's my number one game.
Yeah, I look forward to trying it out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll hate it.
You probably will. No, you'll probably think it's okay. We'll find out in the review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So those are our top 10 solo games. For anybody who's interested, I will say that there's been some significant movement in my list this year just because we played a lot of new games.
Yes.
And there were a lot of games that I really thought might make it higher on the list. But then when it came down to just actually ranking them, there's so many good games out there that it's just hard for me to do. So like Lisboa is number 11, Teotihuacan is number 12. We'll have a review of that coming in case anybody's interested. Mage Knight slipped down to number 13. But that means that like games like Gloomhaven didn't make my top 10. City of Kings, Wingspan, games that I love. I am more and more convinced that this is like a golden age for one-player games. More and more publishers have begun to realize that this is something that's important to a lot of people. And that even if they won't play it all the time, they at least want the option.
Right.
And yeah, I just felt like it was very difficult for me to make this list.
Where was Mage Knight for you last year?
I think it was my number 9 or 10 last year.
Okay, so it was close to falling off already.
Yeah, it was. And it's just, I love Mage Knight, right? But it's a matter of the playtime is very long.
Yes.
Setup takes a while. It's become a once or twice a year game for me. I love when I get the chance to play it. But when I think about games that I like the most, I just had to bump it down a little bit just because of those factors and where I am at in life right now. That's why Marvel Champions is hidden for me because it's, man, at the end of a long day, I can play 1 or even 2 games of this and it's not a problem. Yeah, this is where we are right now. If you all are interested in any of these games, and if you want to check out more on them, we have reviews for most of these games, and we'll have some reviews for some of the others that are missing coming up pretty soon, so check those out. But until next time, folks, that's all for this episode. For those who don't know, we are a member of the Dice Tower Network. That is a network of shows that is associated with the channel and podcast that was started by Tom Vassell, the Dice Tower. If you want to find other shows about board games that you're going to love, check out dicetower.com to find out what other shows are in the network and check out their content. If you haven't yet, follow us on Facebook or Instagram. We share pictures of what we're playing and thoughts on first impressions of games, and we run giveaways on there pretty frequently. So if you haven't yet, follow us there. You can find us on Instagram at Solosaurus Podcast. If you haven't yet, please rate or review the show on iTunes. That goes a long way toward helping other people find the show and expanding what we're able to do with the show. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't already. And we have a micro badge for Solosaurus fans on Board Game Geek. It costs 8 Geek Gold like all the others. And if you don't have it, I'm more than happy to spot you the cost of that. Just send me a message on Board Game Geek and I will send you the Geek Gold you need to show everybody how much you like the show. And that's all we've got for this episode. Until next time, I'm Brandon Waite.
And I'm Carter Mackey.
And this is Solosaurus.